I'd like to share with you this week's Parshas Vaetchanun, something very nice from the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levi Yitzchok Zatzal. Rabbi Levi Yitzchok writes to the Rebbe in 1932 on the day of the Alter Rebbe's yahrzeit. And he tells him like this, a very interesting thing. He said, I heard from my father, who was great Kedushas, Rabborech Schneerson, the Rebbe's grandfather, Rabbi Levi Yitzchok's father, and he tells him a story that he heard from the Rebbe Maharash. An interesting thing, that the Shagas Aryeh, very, very famous Goren and Godol, he learned Shas 600 times. Now the Rebbe, by 30 years old, he finished Shas 16 times, and the level and the depth of how the Alter Rebbe learned was even greater than the 600 times that the Shagas Aryeh learned, even though it was only 16 times. Ask Rabbi Levi Yitzchok, first of all, what is the meaning of that? By 16 times you understood already so much more than the Shagas Aryeh? And also, what's the numbers over here exactly? 600 by the Shagas Aryeh and 16 times by the Alter Rebbe. Everything has an exact number. Experience of Rabbi Yitzchok is all taken from this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha we have Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, Hashem is one. Now we know that the Dalet of the Echad is large. The Arizal in Pri Eitz Chaim, Shar Krishma, Perikut Gimel, Dalet, he explains how large does this Dalet have to be. So he writes, it should be 4 times the amount of a regular Dalet. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchok right away, so we see from here that the level of the Pasuk of Shema, which symbolizes in this large Dalet, and that's why we also emphasize it, Echod. The reason why we emphasize the Dalet is to show, this is a larger Dalet, it's not a regular Dalet. And that's why we say it in a longer type of sound. 4, Dalet is 4. 4 times 4 has to be 4 times the measurement, is 16. So the number 16 is hinted in this Dalet, large Dalet, in the verse of Shema. Now in the Torah we don't have Borech Shem Kaved Machus Le'Levar. The Gemara says in Masechta Pesachim, that came from Yaakov. That's more, as we say, from Midei Rabbanon. Now explains in the Arizal in Pri Eitz Chaim over the Perikut Gimel, Perikut Dalet. If you take the first 3 words of Borech Shem Kavod, you will see it adds up to 600. Borech is 228, Shem 340, Kavod 32. Add up the numbers together, 228, 340, 32, 600. And the reason has a lot of hints about this. What's the meaning? Borech Shem Kavod adds up to 600. And the Pasuk Shema in this large Dalet is 16, and he has a Kabbalistic teaching over there. And the Rebbe's father explains this in many, many places. Won't go into it now. But one thing Rabbi Levi Yitzchok points out, in the verse of Shema is hinted the number 16, this Dalet, large Dalet. The number 600 is hinted in the words Borech Shem Kavod, the second verse. And he explains, says of Chassidus, the verse Shema Yisrael goes on Yechudi Eloah, and Borech Shem Kaved Machusay comes the lower level of unity called Yehudat HaTorah. I'm not going to go into all the lengthy discussion, but in many places Rabbi Levi Yitzchok points out that the level of Shema Yisrael learning Dalet, learning Torah on that level, is also learning Torah with the esoteric meaning. And learning Torah on the level of Borech Shem Kavod, Yehudat HaTorah, how Hashem comes and manifests, relates to this physical world. So you learn Torah dealing with physical objects. That's more nigla, the revealed part of Torah. And this is what Rabbi Yitzchok wants to bring out. The number 600 is a great number. The Shagas Haya learned 600 times, but he was on the level of Baruch Shem Kavoid. Yichud Tator, he learned Torah how it relates to this physical world. But the Rebbe, in addition to, of course, learning Torah with all this halachas, it was permeated with the large Dalet, 16. And that's why 16 times he learned Shas by the age of 30. And he understood it deeper because it was also how it fits and it relates, and the explanation of also with the Pnimis HaTorah. So the Rebbe had Pnimis HaTorah with Nigla the Torah. The Shagasaria had 600 Baruch Shem, Yichud Tator, only Nigla the Torah. That's where the Rebbe was. His level of 16 was a lot deeper. There's so much that we can talk and elaborate on it. Just in a nutshell, this is also the meaning of tzitzis. Maybe we once talk about it. We know the word tzitzis, tzadik yud tov, for 600. So the beged symbolizes that level of Torah, Baruch Shem Kavoid. And how many strings do you have? So if you look good, you have 4 corners. Each corner you put in 4 large strings, which eventually comes into 2, which is 8. But you start off with putting in 4 into the loop. So you have 4 in each corner, 4 times 4, 16. So the string symbolizes to the 16. The beged, the garment, symbolizes to the 600. Tzitzis, tzadik yud tov, adds up to 600, the Baruch Shem Kavoid. Many places out there, the Rebbe talks about it. This is the meaning of if you learn Torah, just the nigla part, or also you learn with the depth, the kesed of Torah. And that's the meaning of the 16 that the Alter Rebbe learned.